this briefing on the proposed program of work and budgets for the biennium 26-27. My name is Gunda Getrumkalne, and I am the Chief of the Administrative Management Branch of the BRS Secretariat. I will be joined today by my colleague, Armand Chucks, who is the lead Finance and Budget Officer in the Secretariat. We will go through the presentation, and at the end, as mentioned by Emily, you will have an opportunity to ask us any questions. The purpose of today's briefing is to provide you with general information on the BRS Secretariat's approach to budget, introduce the two budget scenarios, and provide additional details on the proposed staffing envelope, as well as acknowledge financial support of all our contributors, and also provide you with a brief update on arrears. We will start with an overview of our documents. The budget-related documentation consists of several joint documents as well as some convention-specific ones. At this time, most of the documents are already posted on the BRS Convention's websites, so you are able to go and visit them and review and download them directly. The main working document, which is listed first on your screen, Programs of Work and Proposed Budget for the Biennium 26-27 combined proposal, presents the two budget scenarios. It is supplemented by additional documents that will give you more information on indicative assessed contributions, background information on the staffing component, and will provide you further details on the 36 individual program of work activities. And now let's take a look at the budget format and terminology. I see from the list of attendees and colleagues who joined us that some of you may be familiar, but we also have colleagues whom I have not seen before in budget contact group or also attending similar webinars before. So let's go briefly over some formatting terminology and basic concepts and principles before we get into the details. So budget has been developed jointly for all three conventions and presented in a harmonized format for both core and voluntary funds. Budget includes 36 program of work activities and a staff budget. Examples of program of work activities include conferences and meetings, scientific and technical activities, training and capacity development, partnerships, publications, and so on. Next, I would like to mention that we have core budget as well as voluntary budget. Core budget will be the focus of the meeting of the COPs because that is the one where we need parties' specific approval, while voluntary budget is just a funding estimate, and that will be formed by what may be fundraised for each program of work activity during the biennium. So the core budget is the one that will be funded by assessed contributions. So those are the ones that will require COP's approval in the form of a decision. And now let's take a look at the goals and key principles of the budget. The reason why we are having discussion on budget is that we need to have a budget to ensure that the BRS Secretariat is able to carry out its core mandate and goals and is able to service meetings of the parties such as COPs, their subsidiary bodies, as well as facilitate the delivery of technical assistance and also make sure that we actually have sufficient capacity in-house to provide the assistance to all the colleagues who are actually carrying out the substantive functions. And also, it should be mentioned that within the budget, we are mentioning that essential activities are prioritized for funding from the general trust funds. So those would be the assessed contributions. And then due to the current landscape of funding opportunities, we also have to mention that activities funded from the Special Voluntary and Technical Cooperation Trust Funds will only be undertaken subject to the availability of resources. And now I would just like to mention that, apologies, we have two budget scenarios. And as requested by the previous CUPs in 2023, the Secretariat has prepared 2 budget scenarios. So we have Executive Secretary scenario, which is basically a scenario where Executive Secretary notes what kind of changes are needed over the previously approved budget, and it usually should not exceed 5% increase in nominal terms above the previously approved budget. And zero nominal growth scenario, as implied by its title, is a type of scenario where we are aiming at maintaining the operational budget at the 24-25 level in nominal terms. And now I have gone over the main principles and terminology and introduced the 2 scenarios. I will hand over to my colleague Armands, who will dive into the specifics of the 2 scenarios and will also give you information about our staffing envelope. Over to you, Armands.
Thank you, Gundega. Now I'd like to go a little bit deeper into each of the 2 scenarios. As Gundega just mentioned, Executive Secretary scenario is in fact 5.4% increase over the current biennium budget, approved budget. And this scenario is maintaining all activities which are based on existing mandates and needs of the parties. For this scenario, there are 2 types of changes. There are increases and decreases. Let me start by certain increases that we have introduced to this scenario. Firstly, and the largest one is related to staffing envelope under both scenarios. And this includes effectively within grade step increments, inflation and exchange rate fluctuations. Further, we have an addition of 50% of a P3 post in Geneva duty station for the Stockholm Convention Compliance Committee, Secretariat staff travel, services provided by the United Nations Office at Geneva, certain costs for conference services, venue and logistics, as well as DSA increases for Rome and Geneva, and to some extent new face-to-face meeting of the Stockholm Convention Compliance Committee. I'm not mentioning some smaller and less material increases. As for decreases, in this scenario, there is no requirement for the review of financial mechanism under the Stockholm Convention during 26 and 27 biennium, because this activity is taking place on a 4-year basis. Further, there are cost-cutting measures of reduction of certain documentation, specifically for POPROC committee, and there is no legal level segment planned for the 2026-2007 biennium COPs. Moving further to zero nominal growth scenario, regrettably, we have our zero nominal growth scenario 1.9% higher than 2024-25 biennium approved budget. And this is following numerous negotiation cycles during which budget was approved at let's say, relatively small cost increases. And with this steadily declining in activities have steadily declined in real terms. Accordingly, in this situation, it has become very increasingly unrealistic to prepare viable scenario of real zero nominal growth. Now, in this scenario, there are 2 major effects compared to Executive Secretary scenario. Firstly, there's a number of meeting-related costs that have been decreased. Namely, we were forced to decrease editing and translation of different documentation in 6 UN languages. There would be no interpretation provided for POPROC meetings, and the Bureau meetings would be held in the online regime. Now moving to certain technical work, there are some certain activities, specifically technical work, which will be shifted to be funded by voluntary funds. And specifically, this concerns translation of technical guidelines, DDT expert group, a GMP, and also national reporting, among other activities. Moving forward, I want to go a little bit deeper in staffing envelope, considering that this is the biggest of the budget elements in our budget. And as you may have seen in the documentation, staffing component for the biennium 2026-27 would be increasing by 1.4 million, and this will be exactly the same for both scenarios. So the increase is compared to the current biennium budget of 20.8 million. In terms of the specific post count, there is one additional 50% position at P3 level created to provide Secretariat with the capacity to support compliance committee of the Stockholm Convention. And this follows the established decision of the previous COP, and decision was SC 1119. This increase amounts to $230,000. Now, resulting from this increase, the overall staff positions funded by the general trust funds would increase from 46.7 positions in the current biennium to 47 positions in the next biennium. Now, the other cost element in the staffing envelope, as briefly mentioned before, is basically related to applying a 3% gross rate factor to cover annual step increases, exchange rate fluctuations, and inflation in both Geneva and Rome duty stations. And this increase amounts to $1,119,000. Now, having to explain more generally, staffing situation in the BRS Secretariat, all staff positions are funded from several different sources. The one that we are discussing here is the general trust funds. Then we also have certain positions that are funded from the in-kind contributions from FAO, from program support costs, and also from voluntary contributions. In the next slide, we have proposed a staffing table with a little bit more detail, and this compares approved budget for the current biennium with the proposed budget for the next biennium. And you can see that the core funded positions are increasing from 46.5 to 47 posts in both scenarios. And as I mentioned before, there are also a few positions that are funded from other sources, and they're also reflected here. And also, in addition, this gives a little bit of an idea and a breakdown by different levels of positions, and gives you a better understanding of the composition of the Secretariat. Moving forward, I just wanted to bring your attention to the overall comparative of current biennium budget level, approved budget level, with what are our proposals. On the left side, you'll see three columns that are representing the core budget. And on the right side, there are three columns representing voluntary budget. So you see that the core budget of current bienniums, 31.2 million, would increase to 31.8 under the zero net growth scenario, and to 32.9 million under the executive secretary scenario. And you will also see dynamic of the same three scenarios under the voluntary funds on the right side. And finally, from my side, I'd like to acknowledge all the funding support. And we are very thankful to all the donors for their generous help. Firstly, I'd like to mention the governments of Italy and Switzerland for the Rotterdam Convention providing host country contributions each year of 600,000 euros. And from Switzerland government for the Stockholm Convention, host country contribution of 2 million Swiss francs annually. Further, we receive support from FAO of their $1.5 million per biennium as an in-kind contribution for several different cost elements, including administrative, legal, office space, and conference facilities. And I specifically would like to thank the voluntary contribution donors, and those are the governments of Belgium, China, Canada, Denmark, Finland, France, Germany, Japan, Norway, Switzerland, the United States, as well as the European Union. And these are the contributors of the voluntary funds since previous COPS meeting. Using this opportunity, let me also, on behalf of Secretariat, call for your early donor pledges for the biennium 2026-27 activities. Thank you. I would like to hand over now to Gundega.
Thank you very much, Armands. And now just a quick update on the status of arrears in our core budget contributions. As you can see from the two charts, the number of parties in arrears has decreased for all three conventions when compared to the same time 2 years ago when we were also getting ready for the COPs, and that was 2023 COPs. Also, a positive trend, the total amount in arrears has decreased as well. So that is an excellent trend, and we hope it will keep going. And we thank all who provide their contributions in a timely manner. Also, this probably is due to the efforts that the Secretariat has exerted in order to collect the arrears. So here we can mention we have continued to prepare invoices for the payments twice a year in October, and currently we are getting ready to send out the April invoices. Basically, those are the same invoices, but just a kind of a reminder that will also have a list of all other outstanding payments if there are any. Our executive secretary continues to conduct any bilateral meetings with parties on arrears throughout the year with whoever is interested or need any kind of individualized outreach and support. Also, we continue to send out letters to the Ministries of Foreign Affairs signed by the 3 COPs presidents and the executive secretaries. And that will be sent out later this year by email. And this letter will also include a payment plan template in English, and that will be enclosed with the letters for your action if the need be. Also, I would like to mention that during the COPs, Secretariat staff will be available to answer any questions regarding arrears for any particular party, and also to prepare any payment plans. More details will be given to all at COPs to give you more specific information on this. So this concludes our formal part of the presentation. And now please let us know if you have any questions. As Emily mentioned, you can raise a hand or you can put your question in the chat. Thank you, everyone. I don't see any questions. Emily, do you see any raised hands or questions?
Yes, there is. You are one participant, so I can hold on. I cannot see the full name. So it's from the Russian Federation. There is a raised hand icon, followed by Khalifa from Qatar.
Thank you very much. I assume I can speak. My name is Ian Malkin. I'm representing the permanent mission of the Russian Federation here in Geneva. Thanks a lot for the briefing. I just had one question with regards to the zero nominal growth scenario. There was a provision in your presentation saying that under this scenario, there will be difficulties to fund translation of documents into all 6 languages. And if I'm not mistaken, other interpretation-related difficulties. I wanted to ask why it is specifically those components of funding that may suffer under this scenario. What makes the situation with translation of documents unique in this regard?
Thank you for your question. Well noted. Just to respond to your question, zero nominal growth scenario is scenario we are putting forwards just because it's requested of us. And parties usually acknowledge and are aware that this scenario is rather unrealistic, and no one, of course, would like to see further cuts in translations or production of documents or so on. So this is basically, you can look at it as a starting point for negotiations. Since parties have requested us to prepare this scenario, during the budget contact group, we will be discussing both scenarios. And then the zero nominal growth sometimes parties pick that particular scenario as a starting point. So we will look at both scenarios at the same time, and it will be up to the parties to come up with a way forward that will be agreeable to all. So that will be part of the negotiations. It will be up to the parties to decide if this is something that you would like to cut, or perhaps you would like to look elsewhere. This is just the Secretariat's proposal. It is, look at it as a starting point for negotiations, and Budget Contact Group will be the place where you will have an opportunity through the representative of your party to actually communicate views and put forward other options and have those considered and approved, and then be as part of the final negotiated budget output. So just to reassure you, it does not mean that those will be the specific cuts that will take place. It's just a starting point. We may as well have picked something else. It's just a requirement from the parties that we are trying to adhere to our best of ability. I hope I answered your question. Thank you. I see we have another hand. It is from Khalifa Qatar. Please go ahead and present your question. The floor is yours.
Hi, thank you. This is Khalifa from Qatar on behalf of Ministry of Environment and Climate Change. And thank you for your briefing. Just to have one question regarding the yearly payment. For Stockholm and Rotterdam, we received a letter from the Secretariat, but for Basel payment, yearly payment, we didn't receive it yet for the yearly payment. And also the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, they didn't receive anything from the Secretariat regarding Basel. But for Stockholm and Rotterdam, we received already the letter for the yearly payments. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for letting us know. We will be getting back to you shortly. We will look into that and we'll get back to you. We have your email address and we will get back to you with the missing information regarding Basel payment and see if there is any other follow-up needed. So thank you for letting us know. It is a very important matter and we are thankful that you are addressing it and we will take care of that. So thanks and well noted, and we will get back to you by email.
Thank you very much.
I see we have another hand up, and it is from Switzerland. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much for the presentation. My name is Marco Crugnola for Switzerland here. I have a question regarding the source of funding for staff costs. When we looked at the budget document that's uploaded and already available, thank you very much for that. We have noticed, concretely, I'm talking about INF document 69 and table 1 in Annex 1. There you have the budget table and the so-called, well, sort of the budget line 37, which is the staff line. We have noticed that the source of funding for the overall staff costs has changed compared to the last biennium. In 24-25, there were 20,800,000 and some thousand in core and 4,700,000 and some thousand in voluntary, making a total of staff costs of 25.5 million roughly. Now, in both proposed in the executive secretary scenario and in the zero nominal growth scenario, in both scenarios, you propose a change in partition between core and voluntary, namely 22.1 or 22.2 million in core and 3.5 in voluntary. And that's 1.25 million less voluntary, which is then added to the core. I know it's a bit nitty-gritty, but we were just asking ourselves if you could elaborate a bit on that proposed change. Why are you proposing to change or to move the funding source for staff for 1.25 million to core compared to the previous budget of the biennium 24-25? I hope I've expressed myself clearly. If not, please allow me the time to give it another try. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marco. Your question has been heard and well noted and understood. First of all, I would like to mention that the number of positions funded by core funds have not changed, with the only exception being the new proposed 50% of a P3 position. In previous biennium, we had approved staffing table to be funded from core, meaning 24-25, 46.5 positions. And this time for 26-27, we are proposing that 47 positions be funded from core funds, meaning the only increase we are asking in terms of number of positions to be funded from core funds is just a half a position. And the only reason we are asking for this half a position is because there is a new mandate for the Secretariat and we need staffing component to support that mandate. You did notice that there are changes in numbers presented under voluntary funding. And as I mentioned during the earlier slides of the presentation, voluntary funding is basically whatever we put there, it's basically kind of more like a wish list. And it is only implemented if we have fundraised or mobilized resources. So it is not that we are shifting resources from core to voluntary or from voluntary to core. Basically, voluntary changes as we change our estimates as to what we are planning to mobilize for, what will be our needs during the biennium. So the voluntary component has no direct relationship with the core component. The core component is the one we put forward to parties for approval. We maintain it at the same level, with the exception of the half of the P3 position at 50%. And voluntary, it's basically whatever we are planning to fundraise, what we see as our needs. So you see there are some differences between what we had in 24-25 and what we see in 26-27. So, but that has no direct link to the core funded positions. So I hope I have explained that. But if you would like to address specific numbers, I may perhaps hand it over to my colleague Armans, unless this is clear. Marco, was it clear?
Thank you. Yeah, it explained part of my question,
Okay,
if
good.
I may. I can understand your explanation regarding the numbers in voluntary.
Okay.
However, you know, when we just looked at that particular budget line, it occurred to us that if we add the staffing costs from core and voluntary, if we add them together, we always arrive at the same number, which corresponds to your statement that the numbers of staffing have not increased except for that 50% P3 position. However, if you look at the partitioning of the source for all the staffing costs, then we have a reduction in voluntary and an increase in core. And that increase in core is, I would say, larger than that part-time P3 position. And therefore, it adds to the scenario, so to say. So
Thank
that
you.
part, it may be it's a bit too technical a question for this format, but these were the questions that we that caught, or these numbers caught our attention when we saw them, and maybe you will have the time to look into them, and we can also ask the question in writing, and that way it might be easier to find the answer.
Thank you, Marco. Indeed, we would be very happy to provide the response in writing. So I hope we will be able to ease your mind and clarify the situation that we are not shifting the costs from voluntary to core. But we will provide it in writing. So absolutely. And we also have, Marco, your email, so we will be happy to reach out as well.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. I see we have no raised hands. Oh, there's a comment in the chat. Let me see. Where's the comment? I see we have a message from Chile that highlights the very important point that it is very important for parties to pay on time, since that could impact opportunities for candidates to be on certain bodies of the three conventions. And of course, you can find information on the BRS website regarding arrears of your specific party if you wish so. We also have available information about payment plans, and we also have an email address listed on our website, so you could reach out and see if you would like to settle any outstanding arrears so that your party would not be negatively affected during CAPS. So thank you for that comment from Chile. Do we have anything else from colleagues, from our participants? I don't see anything so far. Well, in that case, I would really like to thank all of you who found the time to attend this briefing. And I wish you all a very good afternoon, very good morning, or very good rest of the day. And we are looking forward to seeing those who will be coming to COPs at the COPs. And for rest of you, we wish you very good rest of the day. And thanks again, everyone.